The anemone tendrils you see in the test really just are Sully's hair. The hairs are fatter, they're a different color, they're tapered at the end, and they're being pulled up instead of pushed down by gravity, and they're waving around. Other than that, it's really just hair. The final anemone was much more complicated than that. Each tendril is really a cloth sac. There's a lot more control over how they move, and of course they look completely different. The tendrils getting out of the way of the little ball as it goes through is an automatic thing. Nobody had to animate that. The simulation just does that. Most of the time, once you get it set up, that works pretty well, but sometimes, well, I really don't want this tendril here, I have to get out of the way.
There were definitely some situations where the tendrils around the characters didn't do the right thing just out of the simulation. So Cameron Miyazaki, one of our new guys, we give him the challenge of animating the tendrils. He animated them beautifully well, and that's what you see in the film today. 99% simulation and 1% animation.
An explosion underwater has some different sort of properties than ones in air do. You typically get this fireball that goes big, gets small again, and leaves behind it a mushroom cloud of smoke that rises up through the water. Lighting also plays a huge component in connecting each one of the explosions to the ones that are local to it, so that when one of these things popped off, it would flash on all its neighbors, who would also then move them out. They'd pop off, they'd light the ones next to them, and carry on and so forth, all the way through the entire set until the whole thing is like one big popcorn explosion of red and orange and yellow and horribleness.
What's our East Australian current? Big current. Can't miss it. It's in that direction. What's our East Australian current? Big current. Can't miss it. It's in that direction.
Well, we needed to figure out how jellyfish moved for one, and that was kind of what this was all about. And this was also to figure out give them something to figure out all of the dynamics down below with.
We began by taking simple steers as standards for jellyfish and sprinkling them in the volume and pointing a camera that direction. We had no idea how complicated the path was going to be from that attempt at a simplistic view of the set to fully realizing the set with all the jellies moving all different directions, the camera flying through that in 3 dimensions, with no reference for ground plane, ceiling or walls, the characters interacting with the jellies being see-through, and the whole thing together became quite a messed up tangle.
Quite a Pandora's box, this little guy right here. But it was worth it because it's beautiful and fun. It's a beautiful scene.
We used a tool called Pisces, which simulates the behavior of the fish. We would set up a bunch of basic parameters where the school would be, how fast they should swim, and then simulate and do iterations of that until we got something we liked. The number of fish that we'd simulate would vary from 5 for a little small school in the reef to a couple thousand for some of the big hero schools and background schools. There's a lot of simulations where we would put a lot of fish in and then just kill the ones that were misbehaving. So basically, hundreds of CG fish died to make this movie.
One of the most important elements to make the tank look believable in the set that it was in was the use of reflections and refractions, looking from outside in and inside back out. Took both videotape footage, stuck our heads in tanks, stuck our heads outside tanks, and started the fish in the tank bed downstairs to really get a sense for how the image gets worked and distorted by the glass and water interface. The effect itself, the physics are well understood. To do it in computer graphics cheaply is hard, and especially to cheat it so we can control it, which is one of the key things about it. And so we weren't able to just duplicate physics correctly. We need to put controls into it, adjust it, and fudge it.
Giga!
In a big action scene like
action sequence, we'll oftentimes build much more footage than we'll end up using in the film.
I think this was 3-to-1, approximately, the footage that we created and then the shots that were actually used in the final film.
What we actually did in the scene is, we knew the basic action that needed to happen. Nigel needs to take off with Father and Dory in his beak, swoop into the water, and then fly around being chased by the seagulls. And what we did was we basically blocked out that entire action from the harbor and then filmed it lots of different ways. Big wide shots, tracking shots, shots moving through the air, shots locked on the ground, panning, seeing them go by, and we just really went to town building a huge amount of footage, and then we found the final scene in the editing room.
We broke it out into like what we call hero shots and crowd shots. Justin and the whole crowd group would get together and they would do the huge crowds of fish and wiping the net or in the net. Most of the close-up shots were hand animated.
The net itself, though, is in some shots hero because we couldn't get that kind of close connection between net and fish without animating by hand. But in far shots is done simulated. But of course, the simulator doesn't do it exactly right. Some fish have the tail sticking out, some fish get stuck outside the net, or want to go back in, which is of course completely insane. So you have to kill those fish and clip the other fish off to make them fit inside the net shape. And there was a whole team of folks who had to work on that stuff with animators to make sure that the amount of activity of the fish, how anxious they were in the scene, how organized or chaotic they were, is all controlled through the scene across the list.